Hello and welcome to a new podcast from the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden, the BRIX. This time, after we have taken you around the world, we are coming back to Sweden and to Scandinavia and discuss Sweden's and Scandinavia's relationship to the Belt and Road Initiative, but also what advantages we can draw here in Sweden and in the north from the Belt and Road Initiative. For that reason, I'm happy to have with me today Mr. Ulf Sandmark, the chairman of the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you too. Well, in the beginning of this year, we heard some stories in mostly Western media that the Belt and Road Initiative is not really advancing as it should be. It has many problems and there are obstacles, and China is actually withdrawing from its commitment to expand the Belt and Road. But the reality is that the Belt and Road has expanded even under the Corona pandemic. And we have now, as we published recently on our BRICS website, a document with the list of all the members of the Belt nations who have signed the Memorandum of Understanding with China on joining the Belt and Road Initiative. It has now grown to 146 nations out of 190 nations in the world. And especially in Africa, we have now 3 new members joined this year in 2021. And the number of African nations who are now members of the Belt and Road Initiative are around 45 out of 54 nations. So I would like to ask you, Ulf, why you think the Belt and Road Initiative is so popular, why so many nations are joining it?
Well, it is opening so many opportunities, and especially now when many projects have been achieved, this is bringing the Belt and Road railways and the connectivity to their nations, and this opens up opportunities for these nations. And then we have on top of this crisis, of course, the COVID-19 crisis, and this pandemic is of course a big strain to the economy, and people need to find ways to put people to work. And the projects that China is working with and the Belt and Road means a lot to put people to work in the different nations. And then you have the possibilities to join not only directly with China, you can actually join with all the other nations too and have joint projects. So it's actually a big community now working together for the development of the world.
Yeah, we have our BRICS map of the world. Let me share it with you. And as you can see, we have not only the 6 corridors of the Belt and Road, but also we have the whole globe. Actually, all the nations in the world can be connected. So the Belt and Road Initiative is not anymore limited to Eurasia and Africa. It can now reach the Americas, but also many nations in the southern part of the Americas have joined. But there's a very important concept, because we have had so much tension internationally, especially between East and West, the EU and the US on one side, with Russia and China, and that the problem is, what the misconception of the Belt and Road Initiative is that this is a way for China to expand its influence in the world. While the Chinese have been saying that their philosophy is that this is also, although it is a project which is initiated by China, but it's an initiative for all nations to join. And what President Xi Jinping calls creating a community for a shared future for humankind is not a political slogan, it's not a gimmick, but this is really a way of getting nations to work together instead of competing against each other and fighting against each other around what people call the small cake in a zero-sum game, that we can actually expand the cake so it can offer more to all nations. And I think this is one reason that, especially in Africa and other developing nations and in the neighbors of China, have been so actively involved in the Belt and Road, because it can expand and utilize their resources in a more productive way. So we don't have this geopolitical tension and nations undermining each other. Instead, we have a system where we can have nations working together for everybody's benefit.
Yes, we have a very proud tradition here in Sweden, because Sweden was one of the signature powers in the Great Westphalian Peace, 1648, ending the 30 Years' War. And in this peace, it was the principles then later became the ground for the basis for the United Nations. But the idea was to not only have peace and stop fighting, but actually to promote peace by sharing the fruits of peace with the other, to develop your neighbor. And developing the neighbor meant that you secure the peace. So development is the name for peace, as Indira Gandhi said once, and this is still true. And the Belt and Road is the fantastic example on how you can create peace through development, because you create this connectivity, bring the nations together, and you find it more profitable to have peace with each other than any kind of war.
Yeah, there are what the Chinese define. There are five major principles for the Belt and Road initiative. One of them is, of course, connectivity, which you mentioned now. We have other principles like political coordination, financial coordination, people-to-people dialogue, and all these things. Here in Sweden and in the West, because of geopolitical problems, we have focused only on the question of connectivity. And recently we had the EU-China investment agreement reached, which is a very major breakthrough in the cooperation between the EU and China that can help ease some of the problems. But there's a general misconception of the Belt and Road being a trade route, like the old Silk Route, that this is only transport of goods from China to Europe, from Europe to China, but rather than looking at it as we do in the BRICS as a development corridor. Do you have examples of the Belt and Road being a development process rather than just a trade route?
Well, the development is the name for peace, as I said, and this is a great opportunity to bring people out of poverty. And actually, China has brought 800 million people out of poverty. This means that you have actually expanded the market, because those people were not part of any market, because they were so poor they couldn't buy anything. And now we have a billion people in the developing nations that could become part of the economy. And if we can raise them and bring them into the economy by eliminating poverty, we would create basically a new giant new economy for the whole world, basically almost doubling the world economy. And this is a tremendous boost, of course, for making it possible for bringing the people together and to develop the economy for all the world.
Yeah, we have discussed with several seminars the question of Africa, for example, and there are very good examples from Africa where the Belt and Road and cooperation with China is making itself tangible, in a sense, giving direct results to the economy of nations. I think you have both personal and personal experience, but also knowledge of, for example, Ethiopia.
Yes, I actually lived in Ethiopia as a kid, and that's one of the reasons I became politically active when I became a student in the 60s. So Ethiopia is very close to my heart in this way in Africa. This is something I could share with you the slide, because I would like to start actually with Scandinavia, because we and Sweden, because we had the same experience here of going out of poverty into a welfare state through industrialization. And this is how it looked like when we were industrializing in the beginning. We were developing power, we were developing transports, basically huge water systems to use the rivers for transporting the timber down the rivers and bringing them down to the coast. As a huge transport system, and also the railways. And this was the basis for the industrialization in Sweden. And this is the same what you have now in Ethiopia. The new railway there means that you can open up new industrial zones, several industrial zones inside Ethiopia, along the railway and in connection with the railway. And this means that you have now in these areas both the transport, then you have the electricity, and you have a lot of labor, labor that can be trained more and more. And in this way, you can set up factories right in these new zones. And this is how you create an industrialization, just as we did in Sweden before, and we can do it now in all the nations. But the model today is actually not Sweden, because people don't know so much about them. We should remember that from our side to understand what the Belt and Road is all about. But now is the model is, of course, the Chinese industrialization model, where they developed this tremendous infrastructure network of high-speed trains and an industrialization based on innovation. And this innovation has now created a very advanced industry. And now this is the possibility for Ethiopia and other nations to follow the same path into the modern era and into developing their skills. And the way to do that is, of course, to find and develop the skills in these nations, in Africa, in Asia, in Ibero-America. You can find through these projects tremendous talents who are part of universities and others, but also can be trained to become part of your own industries. And you can create new innovations that are adaptable for these nations, but also for the world, through the cooperation with this enormous amount of talent you are finding through these Belt and Road developments.
Yeah. There was one area which, I mean, since we are still in the middle of the pandemic, the Corona pandemic, we're still suffering from it and its implications and ramifications for the world economy, but also for our societies. That in the middle of last year, 2020, we actually organized several webinars, and we've written a lot of articles and updates on what we call, or what actually is called, not by us, the Health Silk Road, which was also an initiative which is part of the Belt and Road initiative. But the Health Silk Road helped connect nations to work together against the pandemic. And I think we had here, like one of our webinars, we had both Chinese, Swedish, and other international experts on Medicare, biotechnology, and so on. Where do you see the future of the Health Silk Road going, with the idea of Sweden and Europe participating in it?
Well, the pandemic is putting the whole Health Silk Road directly in the focus. And now we are going out in the world with the vaccination campaign. In all parts of the world, they start the vaccination as much as they can get the vaccines. But to organize this vaccination campaign is actually the major impetus to start building the World Health Silk Road, and to build not only a place where you can get an injection, but you can also get a health service if you develop this. You need oxygen, you need ventilators, you need a lot of stuff for coping with the corona crisis, but you also need to have the electricity, the water, the things that make such a hospital function. So actually, we have a huge market if we understand this and see this vaccination campaign as a mobilization, which is not only for Sweden here, but a campaign for all over the world. And we have a very, very good example here in Sweden of the company Getinge Ventilators, who expanded in the spring last year the production 160%, just as much as possible. Just took labor from unemployed labor from the car factories that couldn't work because of the crisis, and they were put to work in the Getinge factory, and then they started to expand as much as they could. And we have a huge medical technical industry that could be part of this mobilization for the health Silk Road. And if we work in this way, we will both create lots of jobs here in Sweden and in the advanced nation, but also in the nations that are receiving that are building the health Silk Road in the nation, the new hospitals. There is a lot of talent and other things that can be connected to all these very advanced industry here in Europe and in Sweden, for instance.
Yeah.
We also had a good mobilization, like a command center for organizing the whole logistics around getting the protection gear for to protect the staffs and medical people and others in the corona mobilization. And this command center should be expanded not only for Sweden, but actually be part of an international command policy to help build this kind of mobilization in other nations.
Yeah.
So
I think there was a fantastic cooperation between researchers and physicians and experts in healthcare in China, the United States, and Europe and Africa. They had meetings like almost every week. Aside from all the political, noise around them, but they kept focused on working on methods of treatment, prevention, but also on the vaccine, because the vaccines were mostly products of international cooperation. I want to go to another area where I think Sweden and China, but also other European nations can work together, is the telecom, what we can call the digital Silk Road. Because now here in Europe, and especially in Sweden, we now Huawei, which is the world's most active, biggest telecom company, is banned from participating in the Swedish G5 networks. But we know that for one thing that, Huawei's development is part of, was generally thanks to cooperation with the Swedish Ericsson, but also that we have in Africa now, Huawei is becoming the biggest builder of the networks, telecom networks, but also, the equipment and production of the equipment for the telecommunication in all of Africa. Now, the Africa with 1.3 billion people, with mostly young people, that's a huge area where we might lose our competitive edge. But can we work with Huawei in Africa and other places to develop the digital Silk Road?
Yes, I hope so, because this is the way to really go forward. Because there's a total misunderstanding about the discussion about Huawei, that it's only about the relation between China and Europe, but it's actually a question about developing the 5G all over the world. And there is not resources to build this, and actually these companies, there are only 4 or 5 of them who can build it, and Ericsson, Nokia are actually part of that, and they can produce parts of the system. They actually work in this way, that they not always build the system from only one company. And Ericsson and Huawei, they have a very close relationship, since Ericsson was taking the digitalization to China of the telecom, and then they have now the standard together for the 5G. So they have to protect the standard and develop it together, and that's a huge opportunities to do that in the other parts of the world where it's being developed, and there should be no hindrance to this kind of cooperation. And actually, we are shooting ourselves in the foot, because we could lose the cutting edge we had, because we are isolating us from China, and especially the development in all other parts of the world where the 5G is being developed.
Yeah. Okay, now let's go back to Sweden and Scandinavia and our relationship to the Belt and Road. Last week we had a podcast in which we interviewed Mrs. Huilin. She is the editor of railfreight.cn, which is one of the most informative publications on rail traffic between China and European cities. Now we have also Sweden is connected to that, which is a massive operation, but it's still under development. If you can guide us through the connection to this Eurasian transport corridor, but also how Sweden can connect and Scandinavia generally to that, and also our development plans for the infrastructure here.
Well, Sweden is already taking part and connecting to the Silk Road in many ways. It has been going on now since the Silk Road was launched in 2013, and now there are to Europe a lot of connections, especially the older Silk Road. The maritime Silk Road has been working all the time, but now we have several roads into Europe and into the neighborhood of Sweden, especially through Germany. And Sweden is actually built as a corridor from the north to the south, where we have the raw materials in the north, especially the mining, and this is being processed into semi-finished material, and then into machines, and then exported in different ways all over the world. Basically, going.
So we have the mines in northern Sweden.
Yes.
And then it's mined and developed along the way, all the way down to southern Sweden, adding value to the raw materials, so to speak.
Yes, it's a very typical development corridor, the whole nation actually, because you have value added. As the more you transport it south, the more value is added actually. So this is show how corridors are functioning. It is something that is not only just for transport and trade, it is actually an industrialization process going on along the route. And this is what is the idea of this belt idea of the Silk Belt and Road policy. However, now we have a next step in Scandinavia with the building of the biggest infrastructure project in Europe now, is the Fehmarn Belt Tunnel between Denmark and Germany, connecting Hamburg, 2 hours shorter connection from the whole of Scandinavia. And Hamburg and China had the first corridor that Sweden was joining on along the railroad, along the Silk Road. And this was Swedish companies for producing forestry products, and they exported by the rail to Gothenburg, and then from Gothenburg by ship to Hamburg, and then in Hamburg they put it on the Silk Road train, bringing it to China. So this is the connection that is developed already, and Sweden is part of this. And this means that we are taking part in this possibility to get to China in 10 days instead of the Trans-Siberian 14 days, and especially the sea route up to 45 days. So it's a huge step forward. But we are developing other systems, because what we have is this north-south corridor. It has to be strengthened, this corridor, because we have a very dilapidated rail system, and it needs lots of investment. But what we need to build now, from the earlier corridor north-south and east-west corridors, and these are built in several places along the north-south axis. And one is in the very south in Karlshamn. They just opened a new connection to Kaliningrad over the Baltic Sea, to Kaliningrad, where first via Germany they put the cargo to Mukran in northern Germany, and then from Mukran to Baltisk in Kaliningrad, and there they are put on a block train that goes all the way to China. Actually, there are several of these connections over the Baltic harbors from the Swedish harbors too. So we have some east-west connections in that way already. But what is now being developed are connections, land connections already in the let me take next, the midway in the middle of Sweden. You can see that they are developing a corridor from Norway, Mo i Rana, to Umeå, and then
you
Vasa.
can use the browser to point where these
exactly. Actually, here in Norway, in Mo i Rana, they can go all the way down to Umeå, and then with the new ferry boat that is being built, there is an old ferry, but the new will be very much more efficient. And later also a bridge is being discussed. They can then connect to Finland, and then from Finland they can connect to St. Petersburg and Russia and China. So this is a policy to build an east-west corridor through cooperation between the nations, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and then Russia, China, and Kazakhstan on the road. So this is one of those connections that are being developed. The other connection that is already running is the Railgate Sweden. It's also from Norway, Haparanda, in the very north of Sweden, down to Kouvola in Finland, and then from Kouvola the train goes all the way to Xi'an, and then it's unloaded there and goes to the different cities of China. And this is a route that is also already functioning. So we are on the Silk Road from Scandinavia on an east route there in the very top of Sweden. And here Mikael Blomster is promoting this very much. Kouvola is the link to China from Finland. It's in the very southeastern part of Finland, close to St. Petersburg. It's a big railway hub, and in this railway hub they are able to load the block trains. And this is trains where you fixate the train with the standardized containers, 41 in one train, and in this way you get a system train that is all the time running the same way all the way to China, and then you open up the train and deliver the different containers to different places. So this is a very system train that is a system that is used in other parts of Europe to have these block trains to keep the train together and as a unit, and then bring the whole cargo as a unit to the destination. What we export from Scandinavia is the paper, pulp, wood products. We have food, seafood, especially from Norway, and then of course projects and machines that we do export from Scandinavia. And we have also going from China, cars, electronic equipment. And now in the Corona crisis, we have a lot of medical equipment and other things that has been expanding a lot the trade along the Silk Road. Actually, we have connecting, the other new connection that is opening up is the Northern Sea route. which is
Now,
also
this is the globe from the North Pole
yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. So if you look at the world from the North Pole, you get a total other perspective, and then you see that actually Scandinavia is very close to Japan, northern China, Korea, and in this way you can start to argue like the Finnair that you are that there's a shortcut to go from Eastern Asia to Europe. So if you draw a line on this map to the left, you see there from Britain, from France towards Japan and China, you see you go over Finland and southern Sweden. So you actually, we are on the road, and means that this is the shortest route from China, from northern East Asia to Europe. And so we are in a privileged position in this way. And one of those routes now, and this is for the railway routes, but also for the Northern Sea route, where you can get a very close connection, even though it depends on if the ice is there or not. So it's normally open just some months every year, but they are preparing to open with new icebreakers, Russian icebreakers. They are preparing to open it all the year. And this Northern Sea route is also part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And another corridor which is not mentioned so much is the north-south cargo transport corridor from St. Petersburg to Iran and then down to India. It's actually harbors there, Bandar Abbas and Chabahar are Iranian harbors that bring the cargo by ship to India. And this means that Scandinavia and Europe actually with this kind of corridor has the first harbor on the Indian Ocean that is accessible. So this is quite exciting.
We have also the Pakistan. We can connect to the China-Pakistan economic corridor through the Gwadar port, which is being developed now. But we also have, like many countries in the Gulf, including Iraq, they're trying to build ports on the Gulf and railways to connect to Turkey, but also through the Black Sea to Ukraine and Poland and the Baltic Sea. So that could become also another corridor to the Gulf region from Scandinavia and the north.
Yes, the midway corridor between from the Central Asia through Turkey to Europe has just been opened now because of new railways and because of also the peace in Caucasus. So this is a tremendously interesting new regions opening for the Belt and Road. But for us here in the north, the Northern Sea route is actually getting more and more interesting. Now there is a lot of navigation on this road because these gas development projects are now proceeding very much, and they have now built a whole set of 10 tankers to make a shuttle traffic from these Sabeta harbor where they have these gas projects in northern Siberia. And this means that the navigation on the sea route goes both from there to the Atlantic, but also from there to the Pacific. And this means that the traffic is not so much along the whole route, but along the route in different parts. But the most exciting, I think, is the lines you see going right into the inland of Siberia, and on the river Ob, they have now transports that
That's
goes all the way
red
from
thread going down south.
I can show here.
Yep.
Here. So this is the river Ob, and there you have the river traffic now, and all the way to Kazakhstan, to another nation south of Russia, and there Japan is now picking up grain, bringing it through this river transport up to the Northern Sea route and to Japan. So we are not only developing the coastline of Siberia also there is the new latitude railway. So you will have a crisscross of river transports and rail transports. This latitude railway is north of the Trans-Siberian Railway. So you will get a whole network there of transport opportunities that is very important. And we have a possibility now to start to bring in Europe into this through Sweden and Scandinavia, because of the activities now to promote the corridors in the north of Sweden. European Union has been pushed to expand the corridors from that ended in Stockholm and in Helsinki. Now the corridors
just one
go all
point,
the way up.
Ulf,
Yeah.
just that people don't miss it. These are not Chinese projects. These are projects which has been on the drawing board for many years in Sweden and Europe and part of the European Union infrastructure development plans.
Yes.
But now the time has matured. Like in this interview I mentioned with the rail freight editor, mentioned the fact that the train route going through Poland are now facing problems because you have congestion on the road, because the Polish railway system is not fully developed to accommodate to the increasing rate of trains passing going from China to Western Europe. So this is helping the EU to enhance and hasten the pace of developing the railway systems, the infrastructure systems. And maybe the EU-China investment agreement can help now to bring Chinese investors and technology into Europe now that these other the gray zones are removed from the ability for Chinese companies who are very qualified in the infrastructure sector to work with the EU nations on their own infrastructure development.
Yes, but actually the European projects, which is totally decided by the European Union, which projects should be part of the corridors and so on. This is now part of the Belt and Road also. So it is included in the Belt and Road projects. So this means that if you develop you develop these projects also as part of the global Belt and Road system. And of course, the connections in Europe need to be connected outside Europe too, and then it becomes a part of an international transport network. For Scandinavia, it's not. It's you can't really see it here, but the link now is going up all along the coast from Sweden all the way up to Haparanda, and then from Finland, from Helsinki all the way up to Tornio. So now these corridors are going all the way up. And you can see it here. They meet up here now, these two corridors, the European corridors that goes all the way from Mediterranean, all the way and Sicily in the Med corridor, ScanMed corridor, all the way up to Haparanda. And then the other corridor from Tornio down through Helsinki and down to Hamburg and also as a European 10 corridor. So in this way, we are getting European interest all the way up to Scandinavia, and this is very important because we could bring European Union into the contact with the Northern Sea route and the Arctic through Scandinavia, and this is the possibility through what is called the Arctic Railway. You can't see it here, but it goes up here behind the pictures here. And this goes to a Norwegian city called Kirkenes, and this is a harbor city which could be connected with the railway from Rovaniemi and then to the normal Finnish rail system all the way down. And
we'll have to cross the Baltic Sea, though.
Yes, and then you have the new tunnel being discussed. I'll come back to that later between Helsinki and Tallinn, but you have also the Rail Baltica is being developed as a European Union project, and in this way you will get the corridor right through the whole region, all the way up to the top of Scandinavia. But equally important for this is actually the Swedish and Danish corridor that can also be used to connect up to the Arctic. And in this way, we are able to be part of this project. And here is the Helsinki-Tallinn tunnel, because the Helsinki-Tallinn tunnel is the biggest project in Scandinavia that is about to start, and it's being there is finance for it, there is tech feasibility study, but there is not a final agreement on the route of this tunnel. But it basically would mean to connect the capital of Finland, Helsinki, with the capital of Estonia, Tallinn, into one big city. And in this way, you would create a whole dynamic area of the southern Finland, and connecting also to Sweden and to St. Petersburg, and then all the way through the Baltic states down to Poland, down to into these European corridors. So this is a real game changer for the whole region. And if the Danes have started building their tunnel, I think it would be very important for the whole Scandinavian development that if the Finn and the Estonians start to build this tunnel, because it's not just a connection. You would be able to build whole new cities around this tunnel, connected to airports between Vanda in Helsinki and Tallinn airport, and create a whole system out of that. So it's very advanced system, and it's well developed. And if you go just a little step further there, the next step to build a tunnel then would be to build a tunnel to Sweden from Finland. If they build these connections in the Midway connection in northern Baltic Sea, and then the Helsinki-Tallinn, the next step is the connection with the tunnel from Finland to Sweden.
Can you please point on these
exactly.
areas?
And that is the area here where you have the island Åland that could be a part of such a bridging. And what you would get then is a connection to what is called the Northern Triangle. And this is between the capitals of the Nordic countries, which is Helsinki, Stockholm, Oslo, and Copenhagen. This Nordic Triangle could actually become a corridor for transport all the way from Russia, from China to Europe and the continent. Just like the Finnair, it would be a shortcut, and it could become a main road from China, the Koreas, and Japan to Western Europe. So then you would have a corridor through the industrialized areas of southern Finland, St. Petersburg, and also the industrial areas of southern Sweden and of Denmark, and then down to the real industry of Germany. So this could be very, very important industrial corridor for the world, actually. And it would be a shortcut from China and Korea to Japan to Europe. And especially it would make Sweden not a one-way street, a dead-end street, but a corridor where traffic is going from one part of the world to the other. So it would
become the Middle Kingdom in Europe.
Yes.
but
So this is
So
if we could build then the whole system of a high-speed system for Scandinavia, this is a Norwegian proposal, that we build these east-west connections in Scandinavia between Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and also the north-south connections, and build it with a high-speed railroad. This would be a very important, create a local connectivity, but it would be part of a belt and road connectivity that would tremendously expand the dynamic of the Belt and Road, but also of Scandinavia, of course. So this is what we have to develop, just like the Chinese have these high-speed roads.
There's, I mean, there's a lot which is lacking in the infrastructure, transport infrastructure in Scandinavia and Europe generally, but mostly in Scandinavia. And there's a lot to wish for, but there is also a possibility for cooperation with China, because in the past 10 years, especially, they have become the world #1 builder of high-speed rail, standard gauge rail, built bridges, tunnels, and so on. And they have developed an enormous capacity to do this kind of work, and also technologies which can be useful. How can we benefit from that development in China here in Sweden?
Well, the fantastic development of the rail system in China is something that is being imported now into Scandinavia. We have just now, last week, the biggest construction company in Sweden, Skanska, who works internationally, and this company has gone to China to learn how to build the high-speed rail on bridges, on a high on a high level, not on the ground. So this system to build on the bridges, this is now being imported from China to Sweden, because there are a lot of fuss about Chinese companies not being able to build infrastructure in Scandinavia. But then with this company going now to China to import the technology, the Chinese technology will be possible to be used here in Sweden through this company Skanska. So there is a lot of connection and cooperation with China going on all the time. But even though there is this tremendous campaign against China from the politicians, which is kind of double situation, because Sweden is a nation that is working very much with trade and has been part of development projects all over the world for infrastructure and industrial development all over the world.
Yeah. If you go, there's the standard joke here is that if you go to a political meeting about China here in Sweden, everything in China is wrong. But if you go to a business conference or a technology conference about China here in Sweden, everything is fantastic. So there's a huge discrepancy between what politicians, what the media discusses, and what business people, construction companies and biotech companies see in the reality. So you have been to many conferences and you have had discussions with the people in this field, of course. And what is their impression of the cooperation with China?
Well, these people in Sweden working to develop these corridors and the infrastructure in Sweden, they are so angry with the non-investment going on for years. Some people say that if you want to build a railway, it is faster to grow a tree, because they are just investigating and postponing these projects. So what we need is to have this kind of connection with China to develop, and people in these regional development areas of Sweden, they are hungry for working with China and to connect to China and to Russia, and to bring in their region into development where people can be put to work. Because what is going on now is the nations are being killed by this austerity policy of non-investment, and we have to turn the tide of finance into infrastructure and to build the world.
I think this brings us, for shortage of time, to the final point here, which we are trying to get into, is the question of financing of infrastructure, because this is a big issue. Because every time you present such plans, fantastic plans for infrastructure development, industry, and so on, the big question is that there is no money. Where should the money come from? But the Belt and Road Initiative provides certain actually windows into the ability to finance infrastructure, which directly, but also we can learn from that method of financing.
Yes, we have there are credits available in the Belt and Road Initiative, and especially if you just look for a starter for these European projects, you have the 20% co-finance from the European Union on the European 10 projects. But then you have also with the Belt and Road possibilities to finance these projects through the banks that work with the Belt and Road, and there have been created a tremendous new system of infrastructure banks through the Belt and Road, especially the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the Silk Road Fund, the BRIX New Development Bank, the Shanghai Cooperation Fund, and for every memorandum the Chinese are doing with different regions, and also with other nations doing with different regions of the world in different continents, they are establishing bilateral development funds that are directed for these projects that they are agreeing on.
As far as we know, I mean, Sweden and the other Scandinavian countries are founding members of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we could take part. Also, the World Bank is and the United Nations Development Funds can be brought into this. So there are definitely a lot of funding available, but what should be done is to also turn the capital market into these kind of investments. And what we have in Sweden is normal credits for export credits, just like China and other nations. The United States have export credits that can be used, but what we should use this export credit system to put the quantitative easing from the central bank into these export credits. Then you could vastly expand the export financing, and actually we could also launch in Sweden an infrastructure bank, just like Germany has this bank for reconstruction and Kreditanstalt för Wiederaufbau. So this system of infrastructure development should be getting its share now when you are just throwing money into the capital markets just to keep the financial system floating with this quantitative easing. In Sweden, our central bank is actually buying now lots of stocks from companies for companies building for housing projects and for real estate and for other kind of bonds, not only state bonds. So these bonds could be sold from the infrastructure bank to be financed from the central bank, and you could actually put all the available capacity to fully work with this project and put the people to work.
Right. Great. I think we have covered a very, very vast area. I think our audience internationally must be very happy that such an overview of what's going on in this corner of the world, which will no longer be a corner. But usually people don't get this kind of view of what is going on here internationally. So I'm happy we did a Swedish version of this podcast also for Swedish language for the people in Sweden and Scandinavia. But I would like to thank you very much, Ulf, for this wonderful overview. Very informative. I think our audience will have a lot to digest. But please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, which will be available below this video, and communicate with us so we can enrich the dialogue here in Sweden and in Europe on the importance of joining the Belt and Road Initiative and working with China and other nations for global economic development and peace. Thank you very much, and see you in the next podcast.
Thank you.